So I've decided to make my own like little YouTube, booktube series of my, my own little idea. I don't know if anyone else does this. I'm sure there's someone out there that has, but I haven't seen it. So I'm going to, I'm going to say I created it in my head. And it's going to be called Read and Watch Battle. So I'm going to read the book and then I'm going to watch the movie or TV show or whatever it is, that kind of media wise that, they correlate. So this is my first one. So hello. By the way, my name's Kendra and this is Readworthy and this is my first little series. Yay! Okay. So the first thing that I've decided to do is a Stephen King reading vlog. Read and watch battle. That's my first. This is going to be my first. So I've chosen 3 books, and what I'll do is I'll read the book and then report back to you. This will be easy for me. This way of doing things will be easy for me because I still have a full-time job. So, I can't just be like hanging out, reading and talking to you people all the time. I just can't. I'm sorry. Okay, but I'm going to read the book. When I'm finished reading the book, I'll report back to you. And then I will watch the movie and report back to you. And, read, report. Woohoo! Okay, so that's my plan. Okay, so my 3 books I've chosen are all Stephen King, obviously. And the first one is Misery. It's very old. One of his old, books. And it is about a famous author. His name is Paul, who pretty much gets kidnapped by this crazy lady who is like his #1 fan. And she wants him, he wrote a series and ended that series. And it's, a big deal series, kind of, like Harry Potter or Twilight or something silly like that, but for grown-ups. So anyway, and she's read all his books and finished it and realized that he ended it in a way she did not like. Not even a little. So she wants to have him rewrite or finish it the way she feels like it should be finished, or that she approves of. So she wants him to write add on to the series and write one more book for her. Okay, and so she's kidnapped him. And so when I'm done reading it, I'll come back to you guys and then I'll watch the movie. I have not read or watched this movie at all, so this should be fun for me. And then the next one that I chose was an oldie but a goodie again. I feel like I like Stephen King's older stuff more so than his newest stuff because like his newer stuff is like just, I don't know. I think I'm more a fan of his old stuff. So next one is Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I read this when I was a teenager, which was a while ago, and I've also watched the very first adaptation of this movie. I watched that as well. And again, back when I was a teenager, and they both freaked me the hell out. Like, I mean, hardcore freaked me out. Okay. I was in broad daylight when I was reading this book and I had to stop because I was spooked out too much. And there's a scene in the movie, which I will fast forward, I'm sure again, if it gets too scary, because I did when I was a teenager. But what I do is when I know for a fact I'm going to read that book within that month, then I always like grab all the books I'm going to read and I pile them up. And then I put bookmarks, like where you're supposed to start. So that way I can just immediately grab it and start reading it right away. Okay, like I don't have to I don't know. I just feel like it does something for me. Okay. I don't know why I do this. I do this. Okay. But when I did that to this one, I realized, and I don't know if it comes with every Pet Sematary book, but this Pet Sematary version book came with an introduction by Stephen King. Okay. And the very first sentence of this introduction from him says, "When I am asked as frequently as I am frequently, what I consider to be the most frightening book I have ever written, the answer I give comes easily and with no hesitation. Pet Sematary." So, I mean, I know the teenage self of me will 100% agree with that. So we'll see if the grown-up side of me also 100% agrees with that because I'm ready. I'm ready to get back into this. It's been a long time and I don't remember too much. I remember like the big things, but I don't remember like all the little sprinkles. Okay, so that'll be fun. And then another book that I have not read nor have watched the movies of is Firestarter. And this is about a girl who has fire abilities. That's all I know. That's all, literally all I know. I don't know anything about it. I haven't even read the back of this book. I know that there's 2 movies out of this. There is Drew Barrymore's version, and then the one that just came out very, very recently. I think within the last couple of months. I'm going to watch the Drew Barrymore's version first. If I really love this book or I really love that movie, I'll probably do the other one too and might be able to report about back to you with 2 movies instead of just one of Firestarter. We'll see. Both the little girls are really cute, so I'll probably be rooting for both of them in both movies, but we'll see. We'll see. Well, it depends really on how I feel. I'm definitely doing the Drew Barrymore's version. I don't know if I'll do the second one or not. Either way, I'll report and let you know. Okay? So there are my 3 books. That's all. And I'm pretty excited about this. I'm hoping that this is a huge success, and that way I hope you guys love it a lot, because I feel like I'm going to enjoy it. I really like watching movies, especially after I've already read the book. Like when I know a movie's coming out and I haven't read the book yet, I'm like, okay, I gotta read that book, because I love reading books and then going to the movie. I'm not one of those like, that's not in the book. But I am one of those that in my head going, that's not in the book. Or the book's better. But I don't say that out loud to anyone else but my husband. My husband hears that a lot from me. But no one else does. So anyway, I will come back and let you know how things go. I'm going to start with Misery first. So, yay! Okay, so I finished the book Misery. And so my thoughts. So I'm giving this 4 stars, and I will have to say though, the beginning of this book sucks. It's really, really boring. I know, that's weird, right? I gave it 4 stars, but just so you know, the beginning of this book is extremely, extremely boring. I would say about the 100-page mark is where it starts getting unputdownable. There's like little spots before then that like you're like, ooh, God, or oh, I'm glad that's not me, or what have you. But it doesn't, I don't feel like it gets really good. The 4-star rating doesn't come in until about the 100-page mark, and this is a 400-page book. Well, this is a paper, this is a mass market paper book. So I don't know what your book will look like, but in the aspect of page count. But for me, the 100-page mark is when it started being where I didn't want to put the book down, and it stayed that way for the rest of the book. I really can't obviously tell you what part that was, but it was very, very good. Paul is Paul, the famous author, is a very reasonable man in the beginning, and his crazy capture, what's her name? Annie. Annie is the one that captured him, and nurses him back to health. Anyway, she's crazy. She's nuts, and she definitely deserves to burn in hell, if there's a hell. She's a very good villain, for sure. And I'm kind of eager to see the movie because I have not seen the movie just as much as I've not read the book until now. It was good. It was very, very good. I'm trying to think of non-spoiler things I could tell you about the book. I am going to talk about spoilers, so there will be, I'm sure my husband will put something up to make sure that you are understanding that we're in the spoil section, but we're not there just yet. We're almost there, though, because I don't think I have much to say. But the only thing about the very, very beginning of this book, it starts out where he's pretty much waking up from in her house. Like, all the stuff that's happened to get him to that house. You and him are waking up and being told about it. I'm not sure if I like that. I feel like maybe it would be pretty interesting if you were able to like be a part of that scenario. So what happened is he got in a car. He accidentally drove himself into a snowstorm and got in a car car went out of control and went into a ditch and rolled over and all this, like, it ruined his car, okay? And ruined his legs, like broke them in all several kinds of places. And Annie just happens upon the car and stops to see on her way home and sees him, and then brings him home to realize, oh, he's the author that I just adore and love. The series that's called Misery, which I kind of find that weird. The main character's name is Misery. Like she's a woman and her name is Misery. What a weird name to give somebody. But, you know, that's just me. So I would like for the very beginning of the book to have started differently. I think maybe that would have been more interesting than us being told the story, but to actually read the story as it progressed. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting. And but that's all. That's the only thing I would really, and the fact that the first 100 pages is quite boring because it's pretty much a day in the life of a captured person. He literally is healing and trying to get better, and she just keeps shoving pain pills down his throat and get him addicted to that. They talk about, you know, the book series, and then, you know, Paul had finished that series, and that final book was coming out. And he was away. He lives in New York, but he was away, and he was in a hotel trying to write a new book, and he had just finished it, so he was out celebrating pretty much. And so, you know, she finds that manuscript, and I mean, yes, this is set back, I think, in the 70s or 80s, but the man, when he does a book, he, you know, types everything out or what have you, and then he doesn't save anything. It literally is a manuscript, and that's all he's got. He's got this one manuscript, and that's it. And the new book that he just finished, manuscript, is, she finds it and wants to read it, even though it's not Misery, because the last book of Misery hasn't come out yet. And so she's like, do you mind if I read this? And he's like, sure, go right ahead. So, you know, there's that whole stuff happening, and that's about it for the first 100 pages. It's just kind of like, you can figure out that the girl's crazy and all, but you don't really realize how badly it is until later. So, because she's not going nuts or anything like that. So it's just all so la-di-da. There's a lot of words that would probably, and there's another part that I'm not a big fan of this book is, so she gets the last Misery book and reads it and does not like it, does not like how it ends. And so she demands for Paul to be able to see the light of day again. He has to write her, and personally just her, another book, another Misery book. And so she's like, I don't like the way that ended. You need to fix it. And you're going to fix it by writing me a book. You're going to write me a book that continues after this book ends. So figure that stuff out and write me one. That's pretty much his time period of staying at this woman's house, is him writing this new book for her. And the thing is, though, is that we have to read it too. Not all of it, God, but there's like little parts that he's put in here. And there's I don't like a story in a story. And I read the first, I either read the first one completely through, or I read two of them completely through. Maybe it just went over my head, I'm not sure, but there's no connection. So, like, there's no real need or reason, or at least in my point of view, that you need to read those. It's the, you know, fifth book or what have you to this Misery series, so I'm just like, I don't care about Misery and the man she loves and all this other crap. I don't care about that, so why am I having to read it? And it's pages. It's like this book could have been a lot smaller if they were just like, he's writing, and be done with it. The only quirky, kind of cute little thing about those stories in this story is that she gets him a typewriter, and then the typewriter is pretty much falling apart, and it's already missing the N. And so when you're like reading his story of Misery, he's like using that typewriter, and then he has to write in the little N's. So like you see that in his Misery story. So that's kind of funny. I liked that. I liked the fact that they added that in there. And then when he like at one point in time, the typewriter is pretty much not worth using anymore, so he longhand it. Is what he calls it, longhand it. And so he's writing, which was almost unreadable if you ask me. But so it goes. It doesn't use the typing font anymore. It's using someone actually like writing you a note kind of a situation. So, and then like he goes back to the typewriter, but it's missing even more letters, and those letters are filled in. So it's kind of, that part was kind of quirky, and I kind of liked it. I think it's cool that they added that. But the actual like book itself, Misery, that he's providing us as the readers to, I could give a crap less about. And I skipped. Sorry, but I skipped after. I think it was after the second one. I read the first one completely. The second one, I was skimming through it a little, and I was just like, I don't see the point in reading these. Like, they're not helping the story. Like, they're not helping the story before, and it's not like when I read it, it's giving me like hints of what's going to happen later. Like, it doesn't make any sense of why it's there. Maybe you can tell me why it's there, but I don't see the point. So I stopped reading them because I was like, this is actually taking me out of the actual Stephen King book. Like, this is taking me out of it. I don't like that. When I'm immersed into a book and I'm like really getting into it, I don't want to be taken out of that scenario and put into something that I don't give a crap about some lady named Misery that he's made up, that Stephen King's made up for Paul to make up. Like, no, don't do that. So I stopped reading them. Sorry, not sorry. So, okay, so those are the non-spoilers. So the spoil part is coming up. Spoil, spoil, spoil. If you have not read this book or what have you, skip ahead a little bit. Go to the next timestamp, what have you. And we'll, I'll be talking about the movie. Now, the movie will, so there you go. All right, so we're going to talk about spoilers. And there won't be much talk about this because my thoughts were pretty much non-spoilerly, but the parts, okay, so the part that got me drawn into it, when I was like, oh, holy crap, things are starting to really move, was when obviously she came after him, after getting mad at him, she came after him and bashed his knee in, and he was starting to heal, and that didn't help at all. And then she like leaves him for, I forgot how many days it was, but she leaves him for a long period of time, and he's stuck in this bed with no pain pills, with nothing. Like he's got nothing to help him. And so I was just like, God, he like finds his like watch. She like gathered all his things together, and like in her like rage fit, some of his stuff fell out, and so he found his watch, and so he like keeps track of how long she was gone, and it's day, like I think it's like 2 or 3 days. Maybe it's a day and a half. I don't know. I think it's 2 days. That's no water, no food, none of his pain pills, which, I mean, his legs are broken. I don't even know if she really set them correctly, because in the very end of the book, he has to re-break them to be able to get them situated correctly. And then she bashed his knee in and left him there. It's just like, oh my God, lady, like, can we calm down just a little, please? That was interesting. And then so that got me into like, holy crap, this lady is going to start going nuts. Like, I would be terrified to scare her. I would be like, whatever you want, lady. Because that would have been enough for me. But no, there are times that Paul decides to like just push his limits and see how far he can go, because she wants him. When he decides and agrees to finally write the Misery book, he's like, okay, well, I'm safe until this book is written at least, but obviously she's not going to let me go. She's done too much as it is. Like, I'm not going anywhere. So the longer this book lasts, until I can figure out a way to escape. And then there's a whole scene where he's like trying to find a way to escape. And so she like leaves, and she tells him, I'm going to leave for a while, be good, you'll be fine. Here's this and here's that. See you later. And so he, I think it was when she was supposed to, she got him paper, and he was like, this isn't any good. And so she goes to get some more. So anyway, so he figures out how to unlock the door and get out, and like is trying to like figure things out. And this is like, oh, get him more pain pills. That's what it was. He wanted more pain pills in case she like leaves him for days on end again. He wanted backup. And not only that, but he wanted pain pills right then, and she refused to give him some right before she left. And so he's like, I can't wait hours anymore. I got to have them now. So he goes, because at this point he's addicted to them anyway, even if he wasn't in pain. He wasn't in pain. He's still addicted to them. So he goes to find those, and then he finds them, and then he continues to look around our house anyway. And that hole was like, oh my God. I was just like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? Either you need to find a way to escape. Don't be like just searching around our house just for the shits and giggles of it. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God. And then of course she comes home and he's not ready for her to be coming home. So it's like that scene was bad. Oh God. And then let's see. I'm going to my little bookmarkers here. I don't know if I told it to this video in a different video, but my husband got me these little bookmarkers because I'm not a big fan of marking in my book at all. Highlighter, pencil, pen, I don't do that stuff. But he was like, you should annotate in some way. So he got me these little markers that aren't like permanent. You can like take them off if you wanted to. And I love them. I love them. So then, there were the parts that I was really into. Yeah, that was the part where he was like, she came home and he's sitting in the living room when she comes home, and he's like, and he's sitting in a wheelchair that can barely fit through his bedroom door. It's going to take him a while to get back to his room and make sure that it makes it look like he's still locked in. So like he's in her living room. So he's like, oh shit, this is going to suck. So like that was very, very intense, and it was a very intense scene. I didn't want to put the book down then at all. So you can tell throughout the book that Paul is starting to lose his mind. I mean, for obviously good reasons. The guy is like pretty much only knows his bedroom. There are times where she like leaves and tells him she's leaving and locks him in the bedroom, but then he gets out and like looks around and stuff and like gets to know his surroundings, and he realizes real fast that all the doors have like ridiculously barred locks. There's no way in hell he's going to get through. And even if he did, she's in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't even, it's miles and miles and miles of slick snow, ice, rain, depending on the season, because he's there for like a year. Okay, so anytime he tries to escape, even if he somehow got to the yard, there's no way in hell he would be able to get anywhere and hit the state that he was in. So he's just like, he kind of like starts looking around our house just to get a different view other than his own bedroom. And he's he's using the typewriter and he's writing her stories, and like he starts getting into his own personal story that he's literally being tortured to write for her. He's actually getting into it. And I don't know if that is because he's starting to go crazy himself and going mad, and at least this is like a goal, or if he really truly was enjoying writing misery. Because in the very beginning of the book, he's like, I'm so glad I'm done with that freaking series. I can't stand it. I'm so glad I can do something fresh and new. Which I wonder if a lot of authors feel that way, and the only reason they keep with the series is because they're pretty much forced to by the #1 fans. That's what she's calling herself, as the #1 fan. Anyway, he gets really excited. There are times that he has situations where he's like, oh, I figured out how to continue with the story. Yay, get me up, let's go. She gets just as excited as he does about it because she wants to read the book. When he starts getting real serious about stuff when he goes, it's one of his trips around her house. She's gone for one reason or another, and he goes around the house and he finds a thing called Looking Back on Memories. It's a memory book. But instead of like pictures and like actual good memories that a normal person would want to keep, she has news clippings of all her killings. That was unbelievable. Like when I was reading those news articles and clippings and seeing all the crap that she did, and apparently she was a nurse working at hospitals, and so she would be putting down people. Like I was like, you could not pull me away from this book at that point, because I was just like eating that crap up, and that's like pages worth, because she's, that much of a serial killer. Anyway, and so there's all that. That was awesome. And of course, by then that snapped. He's like, oh my God, I'm one of her. Like she's already saved. There was a clipping in the very end of the book, because he can't stop himself from reading, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't be able to either, even though I would be in the situation that he was in. There's a clipping of him saying that he's missing. that they found his car and that he's missing, and people are really worried about him and all this stuff. And so he's like, oh hell, she's starting to say my clippings. I'm gonna die here. She's gonna kill me. Like he already knew that. He said that multiple times in his own head. Like, I mean, excited for me. I get to leave sooner or later, but in reality, I know that's not true. But it was almost like that was the proof he needed to be like, I am not in any way. He knew he wasn't safe, but he's like, I am. I need to figure out how to get the hell out of here. But he keeps going, and then that part of the book where there's a police officer that shows up, and he's like, she's outside like mowing her yard, so she doesn't realize just yet that he's there, and he's doing his little typewriting in the little store, and he looks up, and there's a police officer that walks by, and he's like, holy shit, this could be my chance. And he like throws something at the window and breaks it and gets his like attention, and the guy looks at him and like really studies him and then pulls out a picture of him. So he's actually looking for Paul, and he's going to house from the miles radius of the car that they found. And he like pulls it out, and he's like, that's you. And at that moment, that's when she comes around and kills him, the officer. And I was just like, that whole scene, whew, that was like there were times I was sitting here next to my husband when I was reading it, and I was like this, and my husband was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just reading this book." I was like, I'm totally enjoying it. Ugh. Because it was grotesque. And then there's like the scene where she punishes him for making her having to kill that officer. It's his fault, of course it is, and she cuts off his foot from the ankle down, with him awake and everything. I couldn't imagine being in a situation like that with no control and your foot being cut off, having to watch that. Whew. And Stephen King does a wonderful job with that whole scene as well, including when you come back later with to Paul later after the foot cutting incident. You come back to him later, and he is discussing how his thumb has been cut off, and you're like, at first I was like, did I miss something? There's no way I missed something. I'm like digesting this crap. Maybe I'm going too fast. And then I was like, and then you come to it later, because he like waves at her while he's like still writing at his window. He like waves at her, but his thumb's gone. So it was like, what just happened? And then they explain that, and that's some scenes in here that got me. So like I said, from the time, spoiler, and then the very, very end. So I loved the ending. I loved the fact, because this did get tied into it, because if you remember, or if you don't care and you to read it and you're listening to spoils anyway, in Misery, his series, he killed Misery, and she was supposed to be buried, and then when she pissed, Annie's like, you can't finish it like that, you can't kill Misery, fix it. And so he's like, he has to figure out a way to bring Misery back. He just puts it as, because it was apparently written way back in the day, he like time period, like he gave it, a much later time period. And so he says that she was buried alive. That comes to play though with Paul, because in his head he's like, he does get out finally. He with the whole cops and everything, obviously you kill a cop, that's not exactly going to make things better for you, no matter what you do to that body. He gets away and she's dead, and she truly is dead. Like he watched her get buried and everything, but he's so messed up in the head at this point. He's so messed up that he has parts like they go. You're like Paul as the reader towards the very end, and you like Paul dies, and you're like, and she's still alive, and she like pops up behind his like couch, and she like decapitates him and all this other stuff, and it's like, holy hell, what? And then it like skips over. Paul's like, wake up, stupid, like that's not happening, she's dead. And then he like is dead set on the fact that she was buried alive and she came back up and killed him for it, or what have you, like all these like little scenarios in the very end. that, I feel so bad for Paul. Like, oh God. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know. Is it better to survive and have to live like that the rest of your life? Always in fear and always having these like PTSD moments and all this other stuff? Or is it better to survive and having to go through that anyway? Like what would be considered a better life? Because I really don't know. Although I did like the fact that when he, to escape, he like lines up all this, the manuscript of Misery, and like lights it on fire, and she like loses her mind over that because she's never going to get to finish it. She's never going to get to finish reading it, and she like loses like obviously loses her mind over that. And to come to find out that he didn't do that, like it was just a bunch of papers and the actual manuscript, because he's actually proud of what he wrote, so he saved it. And so I did like that a lot. Like that was like he wanted to hear her scream, and he did, because she screamed when he lit that manuscript on fire. She like lost her ever loving mind. I was like, yeah, that was fun. So we'll see how the rest of Misery goes in the aspect of movie. I think me and my husband plan on watching it tonight, so I'm being told that this is the one, the Misery is the one that a lot of people can't decide if the book or the movie is better. So I will come back with thoughts on that. Stay tuned.